Welcome to this episode of the Talent Forge, where together we're shaping workforce behavior. I am excited to talk to a fellow neuroscientist today who is studying the deep applications of how neuroscience can help us, author of two books, Aspirations to Operations, as well as NeuroWell. Welcome to the show, Dr. Lisa Riegel. Thanks for
Thank you
joining.
so much. Thanks for having
Yeah.
me.
So, Lisa, tell me, how did you get into this space? And, I looked at the sort of history, the trajectory. It may not be as common as maybe some others. I would love to get to know a little bit. How did you get into this space and what brought you to the study of neuroscience?
Yeah, my career and life path has not been a straight line. So I graduated from college with a degree in English literature. So I ended up in sales because that was what you did with that degree. And I sold technology. So I sold what's now OnStar, but before Westinghouse bought it, I sold it when it was a startup. And then when they bought it, they furloughed everybody. So I got to learn that word when I was like 24. And then I ended up bouncing around a little bit and ended up selling automatic greasing systems for semis and off-road construction equipment, which was really not at all in my wheelhouse. I grew up in suburbia, had never even seen a truck. So I was doing that for a while, and I kind of woke up one day and I was like, I sort of hate this. Like, I kind of hate everything that I'm doing, and I don't
Good
care if anybody
motivation.
buys this stuff. And by all metrics, I was super successful, but I was miserable. And then I was engaged, and I was like, I don't like him either. Like, what am I doing? Everything is wrong. So I quit everything, and I put a backpack on and went to Florida and walked around for a while. And after a couple weeks, I was like, you know what? I want to teach. I want to help people be their best selves, and I want to help people find happy. And so that was really the beginning of kind of planting the seed in my head that there's a choice and you can choose to be happy and healthy and successful. And then so I became a teacher. I was a teacher for 9 years. I had a really strong leader, followed by several really bad leaders. I then became a leader myself and was on an administrative team at a career center for a couple years and had, unfortunately, a really, really poor leader above me there again. So I was really interested in the human side of the system because all of my training was all for like how to build curriculum or how to teach a lesson or how to manage a classroom, but it wasn't about people. So when I went to Ohio State, I had the opportunity to do a fellowship there for my doctorate. And so I was doing research and doing classes, and I was really interested in leadership, but not the structural side of it, but really the human system. So I started studying a lot of the psychology stuff, a lot of, social psychology and motivation and all of that kind of literature around human behavior. And then I started thinking, well, real change happens in the brain. So what's actually going on in the brain as opposed to just how we're thinking within the brain? And so then I started really getting into the neurology and really into the neuroscience of behavior and thinking. And once I got into that, it was like this light bulb went off, like, wow, you can explain so much. And I went backwards then and looked at all the leadership and where was good leadership. And it was at the intersection of brain science and leadership behaviors. And so I started thinking, and I've been doing consulting in businesses for 15 years. So I help people. I'm kind of the implementation specialist. So anybody can help you kind of put your strategy in place, but there's a real art to engaging the system, right? So I was really good at that. And so I was helping businesses do that in implementation science. And I was like, man, if I layered brain science in there, we could really amplify the impact of what I'm doing. So I created what I call an 8C commitment framework. And it goes through all of the pieces and parts that you have to attend to when you're thinking of the human system. And then it's built off a foundation of brain science.
That's pretty amazing. I'm gonna go back to something you said because I think it's super fascinating. You had a hard reset button hit at
I
some
call
point
it
in
my
time. I
quarter life
mean,
crisis.
yeah, it's fascinating to me because I think that there's a lot of people out there that probably want to hit the button, hit a reset button, whether it's a relationship reset, whether it's a work reset, or hey, what do I want to be when I grow up type reset. What was that experience like? Like what went through your brain as you were
Yeah.
navigating that process? Because that's a lot of change in a very short amount of time. Help us
Yeah.
understand that.
Well, and it was It was very terrifying because I was a people pleaser
Mm.
and I always got good grades. I always made my parents proud. I always did what I was supposed to do. Like if I came home and had an A minus, it was like what happened? What's wrong? Like it was I came from a very high pressure family. And so the idea that I was successful by all the external metrics and miserable, I had to grapple with that first, with the idea of like, okay, I'm a success on paper, but a failure personally in my heart. So how do I, right the ship here? And then I finally just got to a point where I was like, you know what? I get to choose. And I was super depressed at the time, just like I would look around and I was like, how could anybody be happy? How could people be happy doing this or doing that? And one of the things my dad said to me, he was an infertility specialist. He grew up in West Virginia and went to medical school. And then we settled we were in Akron, Ohio. But he said to me, you need to knock this off. He said, I grew up in West Virginia and his dad worked in a steel mill. He said, people came to work, they did their job. They went home, they sat in their chair, they played softball, and they were happy. And he said, you would not be happy in that. That's not how your head works. And he said, but they were, and you need to stop taking it away from them. And it was the first time in my life that I had this epiphany where I was like, hold on. I get to choose? Like, I didn't think I got to choose. I thought I was on the same road as everybody else, and we were all going to the same ribbon at the finish line. I didn't realize I got to pick what road I wanted. And so that epiphany kind of gave me the courage to say, you know what? I'm on the wrong road. And so I need to literally like get off the highway altogether for a minute and figure out where I want to go. And it was wonderful. Once I accepted that, then it became like exciting and liberating, not scary.
I think that acceptance piece that you're talking about, like the acceptance and acknowledgement of, okay, I have to change. I was actually coaching an executive recently, and they were like, I don't know if I want to leave my position, and I don't know if I want to stay. And I'm like, all right, well, here's the thing that you have to do. Make a choice and accept it. If you want to leave, that's going to determine your next sets of behaviors, whether you're going to, you're going to be pushing this or you're going to be not pushing this or anything else. If you decide to stay, that's going to determine your next sets of behaviors. Right now, you're living in cognitive dissonance of 1 foot in, 1 foot out. That's not good for you. That's not good for the employer. It's make a choice in acceptance. And
Yep.
that can be really difficult for people. How do you coach your clients, or as you're talking to somebody that maybe is at that sort of fork in the road where they see the change or they feel something's off, maybe it's misaligned, and they're not quite there to make that choice. How do you help them navigate that?
Well, one thing I always tell people, first of all, that you have the freedom, you get to choose, right? So if you're unhappy where you are, doing what you're currently doing is your choice to do that. And it's a valid choice. You might say the fear of doing something different is worse than, the creature I already know kind of thing. But I think the other thing that I counsel people on is that there's almost always never a wrong step. Everything we do becomes a little dot in our timeline, right?
Yeah.
And like my timeline's like all over the place. But when I look back, all those dots connect. Like,
There's some kind of line there. Yeah.
yeah, and I think so. I think if you wander through life with curiosity and an open mind and an open heart to learn from your experiences, there's no such thing as a wrong decision. Like when I was floating around in some of the jobs, one of my jobs was with a human resource company, and we would place temporary help. So I got to go to a lot of factories and see how things were made, which was super cool because I'd never seen the inside of a factory. Well, then, wouldn't you know, flash forward just last year, I did a huge project with Toyota. And it was like a project on how to get more girls and people of color engaged in their advanced manufacturing program.
Mm,
And I was doing a thing for the state of Ohio for a couple of years. It was an economic education summit, and one of the sectors was manufacturing. And even though I had like this much, just the tiny, like 1 inch of experience, I had enough of a lingo that it gave me some street credibility with the people that I was working with in these manufacturing organizations. And so, and then, you think about like in my career in education, we shifted really to workforce development, where I had this whole experience in a human resource company and going into multiple places and then, running a state conference and doing these things. So it's like at the time, I was in grad school and I was basically taking whatever I could get and I just say yes because I needed the money and I was like, okay, this is good experience. And now when I look back, like almost every single thing I said yes to has become part of that fabric of what makes me an expert in what I do. So I think when people are scared to make that leap, it's like you can't, there is no wrong road. It's just a matter of how long do you stay on that road. But either way, it becomes a dot in your past. And when you turn your head and look in your past, you're going to see it all connect.
Yeah, I love that too. And a long enough timeline when we zoom out, we do see how each of those things influence not
Yeah.
only our moment in time, but how our brain's structured and the
Yeah.
experiences that we have and all of that. It's so interesting. As you were talking, I was thinking about like when I was in grad school and I started consulting, it was yes to everything. It was like,
Yeah.
hey, how much does this cost? How much you got? Just tell me
Yep.
how much you got, and we're gonna go
Right.
with it.
That's right. I will do it for whatever I need. I need gas money. That's what
That's
I
right.
need.
Yeah. Do you have a case of beer, a dinner, and maybe a little gas
Exactly.
money? And I got
Yeah.
you. So,
Yeah.
but you brought up choice a few different times. We have a motto, one of the ones that I use, behaviors of choice, and how we choose to behave will determine our success and failure. So
Yep.
I love that you keep bringing choice into the play. I'm going to share one thing real quick. My partner, she says, and I love this quote. She says you can look to the left and you can see the storms, the clouds, the rain, and all the trouble. You can look to the right and you can see the sun, you can see the rainbow, and you can see all the good things. But no matter which way you choose to look, you're standing in the same spot. And I
Yep.
think about that in terms of identity. Something that we kind of brought up at the beginning when we were just chatting, but choice and identity, because I think identity plays such a powerful impact. And some people might identify as an optimist, the Simon Sinek's of the world. There are others that maybe don't have such a positive outlook. Can you help us understand what does choice look like when we are the experiences, the things we say yes to, the things we say no to. All of those choices have led to this very moment, whether the listeners are choosing to listen to this entire podcast, or whether they're driving and listening, or whether they're sitting in bed and listening. All of it is a choice. How can we make better choices, Lisa?
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked that because this is where the brain science intersects with this. You mentioned earlier that we choose how we behave. We do if and only if the part of our brain that makes choices for us where we actually have control over those choices is operating well.
And not
And so,
hijacked by the limbic system or the
yes,
nervous system. And yes,
yes. And so one of the things that I talk a lot about is that the road to happy and the choice to be happy and the choice to figure out what you're meant to do while you're here, it starts with self-awareness. You have to have self-awareness. You have to be able to self-regulate if you want to have self-control. And
so powerful.
so when we think about the brain science, so the way I describe the whole brain is that it's like a giant company. And just like a company has like a fulfillment center and a customer service and a C-suite area and marketing, all these different departments, we have departments in our brain. And we think of our brain as like it's our brain, it's one organ, we control it. But 80% of the traffic in our brain is unconscious. It's below our nose, doesn't know time, can't tell a story. It's just trying to keep us alive. That's its entire reason for existence. We only have about 20% of the traffic coming from the top down. And so part of self-awareness is understanding, being aware of how those departments are working. What are the messages that are being sent around? So like when you were talking about identity, so we have our thalamus is kind of like our data center, and I call my thalamus Harold. So Harold's job
I
is
like
to
it.
yeah, so Harold talks to my vagus nerve, and my vagus nerve is my systems manager. He's always, where's my body in space? Is my heart beating? Do I feel okay? What's my emotional state? All of that interoception, proprioception, internal, external. He lets,
Let me pause for 1 second, just for the audience. The vagus nerve is what essentially connects your brain to the other systems. So it is what communicates directly with the neurons that we found in the heart, the neurons in the gut. This is what's sending signals back and forth, telling you, hey, I'm safe, I'm not safe, I'm having a heart attack, I'm not having a heart attack.
yeah,
Hey, keep breathing, everything's okay. So that vagus nerve is such an important aspect because when we start thinking about it, it is a pathway that can be like just like a a freeway. It can get
Yep.
congested, it can get obstructed, and all of a sudden signals start going the wrong way. So I just wanted to
Right.
bring that real quick, but keep going because I love this. I want to meet more of your people. Harold,
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
sounds like a great guy.
Yeah. So the vagus nerve, the other thing with the vagus nerve is like it goes around your heart and your stomach. And it's the reason we have phrases like go with your gut or
Yep.
follow your heart. It's connected to that vagus nerve and its responsibility. So if it is agitated, if it doesn't know where your body is in space, or it feels like your stomach's upset or something, it sends herald messages that say, hey, we're in danger. There's something not functioning in the systems right. And so your stress system ratchets up a little bit. Our lifestyle in the world today is sedentary, and that is not good for the vagus nerve. That is not good for our ability to have that mind body connection of like where our limbs are. And so, what we find is a lot of people really struggle with interoception and proprioception. And so, it ratchets up, they're already stressed. Their bodies are stressed, they don't even know it. Also, a lot of neurodivergent folks, people with ADHD, people with autism can have interoception issues where they can't discriminate very well the difference between some of the physical feelings and emotional feelings. So they have a hard time understanding that, what does hunger feel like versus what does rage feel like or things like that. So anyways, that's part of it. That all comes to Harold and he's writing it down. Then he looks around in the environment and he takes in all of the information from the sensory data, what we see, hear, smell, touch, feel, all of that. He goes into a sensory memory center, and people think that our memories are stored like a library, and they're not. They're fragmented and they're stored all over these different departments in our brain. So when we want to make a meaningful memory, then the thinking part of our brain has to say, hey, I want to think about X, and then order up fragments of memories and construct them again, which is why every time we construct a memory, it changes a little bit because the brain isn't maybe always sending the same memories. All Harold has access to is sensory memories and associations. So he has access to identity. So the idea of I'm a good person, I'm a bad person, the world is safe, the world is dangerous, people are mean, people are not mean. He has access to our sensory memories. I smell cookies baking and I relax my body because that sensory memory is
Takes me
associated
back
with
to
calm.
grandma, yeah, or
Yes,
whomever. Yep.
associated with grandma and cooking.
Yep.
So he looks around and he pulls up these associations. So he writes up a report. He sends it to Bob. Bob is our amygdala. Bob is his name, my name for him. He is our security guard, and he has a couple different jobs to do. The first is to say, are we in danger? And if his answer is yes, and then it's like, are we in a little danger or a lot of danger? If we're in a little danger, he taps the panic button and a message immediately goes up to our president's office, to the CEO, and it says, hey, we've got conflicting associations here, some good, some not so good. In your example, some I look to the right, some I look to the left. I'm not sure what to make of this. We need you to weigh in. You want that because that is it focuses you. You've got a little bit of stress and you're able to still have the boss of your brain operating at full speed. If Bob decides we're in danger, and wails on that panic button, then he sends a message directly up that says, hey, we're in danger. Run down the street to the coffee shop and go get a cup of coffee, and we'll call you when the building's safe again, right?
And
So,
I want to say something on this too, Lisa, because this is so
yeah,
important. Bob's also the fastest gunslinger in the West
he
because all of
is.
the information goes through Bob before you get to anything else like that to be checked. I mean, this is your ultimate IT security legal department all wrapped into one saying, uh, if there's even a hint of
Yes.
risk, Bob's going to hit the alarm. If there's a massive risk, guess what?
Yeah.
Bob gets first choice.
Yep.
And that can be really, really scary when we think about the fact that the limbic system does not have the cognitive capacity to make
No.
rational decisions, essentially.
Right. And when it hijacks your brain, it's Bob and Harold who are making those decisions for you. And when I go into companies, even when you think about the disruption in companies today with AI and with, just all the changes that we're seeing, everybody is stressed. And so when I go into companies a lot of times and I talk to employees or I talk to leaders, I sit back and I think, I am talking to Bob and Harold right now. I'm not talking to this person. And I see
Yep.
conflict within the workplace where Bob and Harold are yelling at somebody else's Bob and Harold. And that's why sometimes when you calm down, you're like, why did I even say that? I didn't even mean that. And so being a good leader, being a good person, being self-aware means we have to understand that system. We have to understand what are the underlying fears that are in those filters that Harold is pulling up to filter reality and make it into our perception of reality. And so, like, for me, I'll give you a concrete example. I get very anxious about time. Like, I don't like being late at all. And, it's funny because it's not about late. It's not about time. So people have a lot of these things, little triggers that set them off, but it's not about the trigger. It's about the fear underneath the trigger.
Yep.
And so for me, growing up, my parents were divorced. I spent a lot of time sitting on the front stoop waiting for my dad to pick me up, and he was
Mhm.
always late. So that repeated experience in my little 9-year-old brain, Harold associated time with love or worth, right? And
Yep.
my body would dysregulate. And so then now, even into my 20s and 30s, if my husband was running late or I was running late, like I would be dysregulated, even though logically I'm like, I know there's a reason it's no big deal. This isn't a big deal. To your point, Bob and Harold are first, they're the first ones that get to respond, and they were dysregulating me. And sometimes I'd be so anxious or angry, it would take me a minute to kind of calm myself back down to enjoy my evening. Now that I understand that, the CEO of my brain, who's me, where my character and my morals and my personality live, I'm able to say, Harold, that is a faulty association. Stop making that association. And I get to be the true leader of my brain and tell them how to work for me versus the other way around. And so I think if we have self-awareness, then we couple that with self-regulation. There's vagal nerve exercises you can do, learning how to breathe. And one of the things I teach the leaders I work with is set your alarm for every 30 minutes on your phone. When it goes off, do a quick vagal nerve exercise. It could just be rolling wrists and ankles. It could be stretching your neck. You could rub your neck. You can hum, a million different things you can
Lists.
do.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Twists.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you can go on and ask the internet, give me 100 different vagal nerve things, and it'll give them to you. So do some type of vagal nerve thing. Takes 30 seconds. And take a couple deep breaths for a couple seconds. Maybe stand up, pay attention to where your body is in space, right? Pay attention to your feet on the floor, or maybe look out the window and just stare at a leaf or stare at some grass for 30 seconds and then go back to work and do
Yep.
it every 30 minutes. And what will happen is over time, your body will train itself that every 30 minutes, you'll catch yourself doing a couple clarifying breaths. You don't have to think about it anymore. So you have the self-awareness piece, you've got self-regulation, and now you have self-control. And now you can make good decisions.
And it's so powerful because these are things that so many times, I mean, for a long time, I would say being present and grounded
Mhm.
and, deep breath work or all of these things were kind of like the hippity dippity, yeah,
A
whatever.
hippie
I
hooey.
breathe every
Yeah.
day. But the reality is there is a very, very strong science behind these.
Yeah.
And I think, as I'm going to navigate this into talking about change because I think that that's a really powerful place. Every organization is in the change.
Yep.
Bob and Harold are taking the lead in so many of these different aspects. When we're thinking about, and I really, what you said, and I love the primer because it's something that we talk about obviously a lot here. But when we start to get dysregulated, and you even brought up, like, hey, where are these patterns coming from? This doesn't just apply to you as the individual in the workplace. So, listener, hear this. This applies to every
Mhm.
aspect of your life, whether you're in a grocery store and go from 0 to 11 because somebody cut in line, whether you have an argument with your spouse or partner over strawberry or grape jelly, all of these different things. These are the patterns that ultimately create everything from our attachment styles. These are the patterns that come in from our past traumas, capital T and lowercase t, but they're changeable. And
Yeah.
we can adapt when we do have that awareness and understand them. So, Lisa, I'm going to walk through right now. Everything, the reality is in every organization there is economic uncertainty, there is social uncertainty, there's political uncertainty, there is survival uncertainty, in
Right.
different aspects of, different areas. And there's some people that believe the end of times are here. Some people believe that, hey, we still got a little ways to go. We also have everything changing from a technological standpoint daily. Every single day it is changing. We thought the internet was fast. AI is faster. All of this change. Now, I've made the joke before. When you get the call, hey, can you come down to my office from the boss? Most of us don't go, yes, we're getting a raise. We go, oh
Yeah.
God, why am I in trouble? That uncertainty, cortisol, adrenaline, norepinephrine, all of Bob and Harold's fun stuff that they like to kick out into the system, the move from rest and digest to that sympathetic, active aroused state. Long term, it can hurt us.
Yeah.
So let's dig into this. We know these pieces. How do we manage change when change is occurring much faster than the speed of thought?
Yeah. So I think, so I have in the Aspirations to Operations book, it's a leader's guide to how to make these transformative changes stick. And I have an 8C framework, and the first C is culture. And so the first thing to calm the nerves down is to make sure that everyone has a sense of belonging and that you have a sense of sort of what we call a collective identity. And so, what that means is that when we are together in this particular setting or context, then I belong and I'm part of something bigger than myself. And what we are here together is stronger than the things that make us different. And the social scientists studied collective identity in the military because they said, how is it that people in the military form these long relationships and really tight ties? And they're so different. And in other areas of the world, you didn't see that. Well, what they found was they had this collective identity of like when we were in our context together, we were a soldier first. The other things didn't matter. They've also studied it in mega churches that
Yep.
Christian identity supersedes racial or socioeconomic. And so when we think about the first step is calming that vagus nerve down, calming the baseline of the system with the idea of you belong here and that we're here together.
And that belonging releases a really powerful neurotransmitter, oxytocin, which some people
Yep.
are familiar with, which can actually dampen those other things like cortisol,
Right.
adrenaline, norepinephrine. So
Right.
that when I love that that's the first part, because any of the organizations I've done consulting with, whether they're like, hey, we have great pay, we have great benefits, show
Right.
me how your people are connected, and I will tell you where your lowest performance teams are.
Yep. Yep. And I think the other piece too is that we have all these polluted filters in our brain that Harold's using to decide how to respond. The solution to pollution is dilution, right? So you want positivity in your context. So how are you celebrating? How are you authentically connecting people as humans? How are you seeing people and supporting them in different ways? And companies spend thousands of dollars on t-shirts and wall hangings and words. And it's just word salad. It doesn't mean anything. Culture is built through action. And so the first part of the book really goes through how do you do that? How do you build that culture without being cheesy? Like, how do you actually form this? Then the next section is the planning C's. And, you already alluded to it. Uncertainty is, we don't like uncertainty. Our brain does not like it. So the first
We'd
three
rather
C's,
have a made up story that's completely inaccurate. Which way is, hey, can you tell me where the church is? I'm 99% sure it's down that way. No clue.
right,
We'd
right.
rather have a made up wrong story than
Yes.
to not know. It's such an interesting aspect of our
Yep.
cognition.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and you see it today. There's a lot of things that are unknowns, and people will believe things that they'll believe things that don't they saw something completely different, but so it's fascinating how we
yeah.
allow that. But the uncertainty, we want positivity in the workplace and then we want a plan, right? So the first three C's are clarity, coherence, and cadence. And so really thinking about and a lot of leaders look at the 10,000-foot view at change, but they don't get down into the weeds to actually see what do I see and hear when this change is happening. I have
Yep.
asked that question so many times and had them just look at me like I have two heads. And I'm like, if you can't visualize the change, for the people in the system of what are they going to be doing, then you can't really support the people as they make that change. So you've got to be able to be clear about what you're doing. Because the other thing too is if I have clarity about what I'm supposed to do, at the end of the day, I get in my car and I feel good. I feel accomplished. I got it done, right? Whatever it is. If I don't know what I'm supposed to do, then I always have that uncertainty and anxiety. And the reality is if I know what I'm supposed to do and I did it and it doesn't move our outcomes, well, then our theory of change was wrong. It's not
Right.
me. It's not that I failed, right? So the clarity, coherence, and then the cadence is important. Like how fast do you want change to happen and is it realistic? And that's where you get into some identity issues, is that I might be the leader. I'm the lady that they come to when they need that process. I have the institutional knowledge and I have some wisdom there, so I get a little street cred in the company. Now all of a sudden, I'm a rookie, and that's not feeling comfortable, right? So I've lost my status and my identity. And so, like, how do we create a cadence of change? Then there's two C's for, oh, yeah, go ahead.
Let me pause you on that one before we go to the two C's. It seems to me, at least from my experience, I'm somebody that's very, very good with fast change. I mean, we make a
Yep.
decision today, things are going to change by tomorrow. And I've learned that not everybody has the same threshold for speed when it comes to
Yeah.
that adaptation. That some people are going to need a week, some people are going to need 5 weeks, some people are going to need 10 weeks. How can a
Yep.
leader think through that? Because like I said, for me, if you dropped it on me tomorrow, hey, this is what we're doing, this is our direction, I'm gonna be like, cool, let's go. I'm gonna carve a new identity very, very quickly into this is what we do now. Let's
Right.
run with it. Not everyone's
Well,
wired that way. Can
no.
you
And
can
part
you
of
talk
it
about that a
is,
little?
yeah, part of it's probably because your identity is an innovator. And
Mm,
so you don't see change as a threat. You see it as a constructive challenge to run into instead of run away from. So one of the things I do with leaders is an aptitude attitude matrix. And we look at what are the reasons for change? Like who on your staff is willing and able, ready to roll, right? Who on your staff is willing but not able? Who's not able but very willing? Kind of go through. And then
that's a
to
great
talk
matrix, yeah.
yeah, and talk about the why underneath. Like, why is this person able but not willing? Is it an identity thing? Is it a lack of coherence? Because you're asking them to do something that they're totally capable of doing, but it's dumb because it's repeating something else that they've already done efficiently. So why are you so really getting to the underneath, because what I tell leaders all the time is your organization, your team is like a rowboat, a sailboat, or a cruise ship, crew boat. Two people are rowing as fast as they can in the right direction. Five people are staring at the scenery or periodically paddling, but sometimes they're paddling the wrong way and slowing things down. Sometimes
Yeah,
they get it in the right way. And you have two or three people that are actively trying to sink your boat. We spend way too much time on the boat sinkers, right? What we want to do instead when we're trying to move change forward is to say, okay, let's let those two that row like crazy go as fast as they want. And let's let them do some of the theory testing and help us to create something that's going to work across the board. The people in the middle, let's have them, let's focus them on the early adopters. I call them the coalition of the willing, right? Like let them focus there.
get
So
them at
maybe
least going in the right direction.
yeah, yeah, they're willing
Yeah.
to try. They're just, looking at the scenery because maybe they don't know. And I always say to leaders, there's three reasons things don't happen. It's I don't know how, which is a training problem. I don't want to, which is an attitude problem or enthusiasm problem, or I literally can't, which is a logistics problem. And
I
so you
like
look
that.
at those people who are staring at the scenery or sinking the boat and you say, where's the barrier? Is it a training, attitude, or logistics barrier? And how do we overcome that barrier? And so what you want to try to do is build collective efficacy on the eight. And then that becomes culture then, right? This is how we do it here. This is how we work together here. And it becomes your culture. And then they turn around and look at the people behind them and go, come on.
And the
So,
boat sinkers eventually abandon ship when you have
mhm,
when you have that strong sense of culture, that strong sense of direction. It's been my
yep,
experience that the culture takes care of those boat sinkers pretty quickly.
yep. Yeah, they either start to row or they start to look for somewhere else to go.
Yep.
Yeah. So anyways, you've got the culture C, you've got the planning C's, and then the engagement C's are collaboration and coaching. And I see people set up collaboration and it doesn't work. It's just, you know, like I'll hear leaders say, "Oh, my staff hates meetings." No, your staff hates dumb meetings. If you have good meetings and good purposeful collaboration with a balance of autonomy and accountability, they will embrace that. But I mean, I remember we were on a trip with our neighbors and they do these stupid huddle meetings that they have way too many people on the call. So it's like they're huddling and there's like 40 people on this huddle. And so we were on a trip and we were playing euchre and just like had this computer screen up and I'm like, "Do you need to be on that meeting?" They're like, "No, it's the dumbest meeting in the world." And then they literally had about 30 seconds that they had to say something and then they hit mute and went right back to playing. So people hate dumb meetings. So it goes through teach you how to set collaboration up effectively and how to coach effectively using the brain science stuff we've been talking about. And then the
I
last
have
two
I
C's.
I have a
Yeah.
rule, Lisa, to that point. The two pizza rule. If you cannot feed your
Yes.
meeting participants with the two pizzas, two large pizzas, your
Too many
meeting is
people.
too big. Yep.
Yes. Yep, 100%.
Yep.
And you know, the thing is, you can do like a large touch-based meeting periodically, but the whole purpose of that then is not collaboration. It's basically information
Information.
sharing and
Yep.
status, right?
Agreed.
So anyways, you've got planning, and then you've got like how do we get people engaged, and then the sustainability C's are communication and celebration. And it's funny, I did my dissertation. Part of my dissertation was really around celebration in leaders, and um, this is an area that people just don't do well. They
Nope.
don't celebrate. And the thing is, if you're a strategic celebrator and if you're doing authentic celebration, first of all, you have to have clarity so you know what to celebrate. And that so sometimes a lack of celebration is because you don't have any clarity on what you're actually asking people to do, so you can't congratulate them when they do it. Or it's not really celebration, it's just more of like appreciation or acknowledgement. You have lunch in the staff room today, or we're giving
Yep.
everybody 15 minutes off or something. So really helping leaders to create celebration systems that have all the components necessary to build collective efficacy so that that boat starts to get more effective.
I love that too, because that celebration piece really trips into the behaviors that we reward, we reinforce.
Yep,
Celebration, savoring, actually digging in and being like, look at the accomplishments, look at the
yep,
legacy we've created, look at the impact, the milestones. Hey, we're all on the same pathway and we are doing it.
yep,
Winners win. And the brain goes, yeah, we are. Let's keep going. Let's keep pushing
yeah,
that. Whereas if it's never a celebration and every single day it's just like, well, I'm sitting here and banging my head against the wall again and not really getting anything
yeah,
done. It's
yeah.
it's it's so
Or even worse,
demotivating.
I don't even know what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah,
So I'm
yeah.
just banging my head on. And you know, the thing is, when you think about like trying to make change, like if you've ever tried to like lose weight or work out more or something, it takes a lot of energy to change. And it takes a lot of energy to build new connections in your brain so that things become automatic. And so if I say I've lost 15 pounds and not one person says, "You look great. Have you lost weight?" Or if I'm working out at the gym, "Hey, you look like you're really getting strong." Just those little comments that are authentic and that celebrate what
Yep.
I'm working on can give me the energy because when do we fall off the wagon? We're tired. I don't want to go home and food prep. I'm just going to run through the drive-through.
Yep.
Nobody notices anyways. I don't have to be accountable because nobody really is even noticing that I've made a change.
Right.
So, that celebration fuels just enough of that energy to help keep us motivated to continue to try.
Lisa, where would the audience find your book, Aspirations to Operations?
So they can find it on Amazon, or if they go to lisariegel.com, there's a picture of it and they can click that and it'll take them directly to the page.
Amazing. And can they contact you through that website too?
Yeah, they can contact me or I'm on LinkedIn if they want to link up with me. And then, I love to meet people. So I come in and, I do keynote addresses, I do workshops with leaders. I can come in and help support like a book study if they're working with another coach, kind of hand the baton off to another coach to do the deeper work. And then I usually take about 5 or 6 clients a year where I really go deep dive and say, if they're ready for true transformative work, I get right in there and really help them every step of the way to create that 8C framework. So if people are interested and liked what they were hearing today and just want to have a conversation, just message me on LinkedIn and we can set up a time for some coffee, have a virtual coffee hour.
I love it, Lisa. And I I really appreciate the way that you talked about Bob and Harold and how you've created the conditions of accessibility, I'll call it, to some of those neuroscientific wonders that we've continued to learn. Because I think some people get a little intimidated by the science, but the science, when we understand it, it is so impactful because this is the human operating system. We keep looking at, the lean operations, the tech
Yeah.
operations, and all of those. But that human operating system is something that's consistent no matter what industry, no matter what role, no matter what position. We have those different components. So getting a better
Yeah.
understanding of that, I think, is such a powerful way for us to navigate that change and that behavioral change. So I just want to say thank you. And on behalf of the audience, thank you for sharing your knowledge, your wisdom, and everything here today.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for having me. I enjoyed this.
Yeah, me too. And we'll look forward to having you back at some point in time. And
Sure.
there's so much more that we can dig into. So again, thank you for your time
Yeah.
today. And thank you, audience, for tuning into this episode of The Talent Forge, where together we are shaping workforce behaviors.